We are hot, people are coming up.
So the most recent is the 1010, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Wi-Fi, is that the right one?
I, no, just use the CB Wi-Fi.
CB Wi-Fi.
And it's traffic, double on 100.
Okay. So I'll see. Me? Oh, thank you. I just put lavender eyes. I grew up with my little brother telling me I smelled like lavender all the time, and now as an adult, I'm like, I know you smell like lavender. My husband smells like lavender all the time. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that makes sense. Mhm.
You guys need a minute?
Good to go. So the memo will be on the screen, Mr. Chairman. All through, moved in.
Leanna, do you need a minute? You're good. What a great idea. What a wonderful idea. So smart. Yep. All right. Is this necessary?
No, no, it's just like.
You're good. Yep, very good. So we're going to call to order, open a meeting at 6:04 p.m. The October 15th Planning Commission work session in council chambers in Grafton. Roll call from the top. Vince Rodella.
Here.
Brianna.
Here.
Megan.
Here. AJ here.
We say AJ.
AJ here.
AJ here. Okay. And we're gonna just kick things off. I think everyone has had an opportunity to get a copy of the agenda. We're going to jump right into the memo, which is now on screen. Do you want to contextualize the memo for us a little bit?
Very quickly, this memo tries to capture all of the feedback we have received over the past month and a half, couple of months now, since the community really got engaged. It captures it in various forms, one-on-ones, open meetings, specific email requests. So if there's anything that I missed in this memo, feel free to email planning commission and we can capture that in a future conversation. But this does capture a lot.
It sure does. All right. So these are the provisions that have been brought forth. Thank you for participating in the open house and the office hours and all of the things that everyone's been so great about coming to. I'm going to go through the list that you see on screen. We're gonna kind of go out of order for the first four of them, but then we'll stick to a mostly natural order for those of you following along the in the memo from home and here in the chambers. So the first topic is around ADUs. And this is a discussion around how to add verbiage similar to what Oakmont is stating. You should read here. A second would be really 180 degrees from that, right? So I'll open discussion if anyone wants to start out.
I'll go ahead and start and say that I'm, as we look at the first one, which is request adding verbiage similar to what was provided for Oakmont. I have no objection to structuring something that says that overtly at all. It captures it, I think, for us. So not sure what our wording would be, but I have no aversion to it.
Currently, are there any approved ADUs in Crafton?
There are people that are using ADUs. I don't know whether they were originally approved, but it doesn't matter at this point. They'd be considered non-conforming
Okay,
because they exist.
I'm just seeing no new, so it
Yeah.
sounds like it's grandfather in any existing ones, but
Yeah, there are existing ones.
so. Would we allow those to continue to operate as? is?
Yeah, you can't immediately make something non-conforming that's existed right now. It's, as far as I know, state law does not allow that.
Okay.
So they'll continue to be conforming. Or they'll be non-conforming but allowed to persist.
Do we have a list of those existing ADUs?
No, I know of like 5 of them, but I don't have a concerted list of where they are.
Okay,
Cause they're not marked anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but we should have a. We should know where they are existing, so once this goes into effect.
Yeah.
We know which ones are good, and which ones are.
Yeah.
No bueno.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
cool.
to probably let them know
Right,
that they're,
right.
that is the change in there.
Would that
Grandfathered in.
prevent someone from, like, let's say I have a garage, I wanna convert my garage, so my hypothetical teenager can live in there as, like, you know, have like their own space or whatever.
Well, that's your own family, so that's a little different. If the ADUs are when you're renting to another
Right.
person.
Right, but the way that this is phrased, it says as a residential unit, so I just wanna be careful that we're not unintentionally prohibiting people from like, you know, using their property to house their own family as they see fit.
Yeah, we can check with the solicitor if
Okay.
this language,
But otherwise, I have no objection to it, just,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it sort of implies non-additional.
correct, yeah.
okay.
So with regard to ADUs, we've asked for them to be removed from the draft plan. They've been removed from the plan. This now brings ADUs sort of back into the plan. In a way that we're saying that they don't. That they're not subsequently new or remodeled. Accessory buildings may be used as a definition to be checked with the solicitor, residential unit, right? So now, when we recommend these changes, do we need to line by line, motion and recommend, or do we?
No, not
Wait
at this
till the-
point. You're in a workshop at this point. I think we can get formal language
Okay.
and then maybe have it approved at a planning commission, but yeah.
At the moment, ADUs, we have them for this purpose, don't we have them permissible in our industrial zone because they can't actually be built there?
I don't even think we did that. So I think we'll have to re-add them back. We'll have to add them back in there so that they are permitted somewhere so that they can be, you know, regulated. So yeah, we did not do that, but we can look into doing that.
No, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought I remembered that they were put there to satisfy this essentially, but if we do this, we won't need to do that, right?
No, I think we're talking past each other. What we're talking about here is putting in verbiage to say that ADUs are not allowed anywhere in the borough as a residential unit. But I think what you're saying is we should have them listed as
No,
okay,
I think I thought I remembered they were in
We had,
industrial.
I think trailer,
Yeah, tiny homes, mobile homes.
right.
I think they're all very,
Yes,
yeah.
okay,
they-
okay.
Yeah.
we move to
Yeah.
industrial.
right? So we don't have to update the industrial. Code to accept ADUs, we can be silent
I'll
on.
check. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We might not be able to, at this point, because they are so common, we might not be able to be silent on them in the code.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and discussion around if they have to be. By law in the code, are we saying that we would want them in the industrial section of the code,
Sure.
right?
No, that's not.
Let's see, I mean, if
Yeah.
we preferred, we would be silent on it, if forced to have it, then it would be industrial, right? Okay, so we're in agreement. You know, the second person, the second from Chris, is, you know, adding more flexibility, finishing materials in the car. So what we're saying is, we're kind of saying no to that, if you will, in our recommendation. We're specifically saying no to that in our recommendation. If it were to come out in the future, that somebody wanted to come to council, what would that process look like if they wanted to make some sort of a change to this?
If they wanted to change the ordinance, they would have to go through a whole ordinance process again.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And would this be subject to a variance or a?
Well, you can get a variance, but a variance, you have to prove hardship. So variances aren't always, you don't want to push someone to getting the variance. But in this case, you could get a variance if you got hardship, if you had hardship.
I'm gonna skip to the fourth bullet point. We will follow the order mostly on this, but I wanna come back to the daycare in just a moment. Because kind of thematically related to this is a topic of short-term rentals, Airbnbs. So there's two requests, one to remove short-term rentals as permitted use within RNCR districts, and the second is to require short-term rentals to register as a business within the borough. Numerous people in various forums have asked this. This has been overwhelmingly popular. So I'll ask for discussion around this fourth topic of short-term rentals.
I agree with that.
Makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I'm in favor of.
Okay. Kim, go ahead.
Is that in favor of removing short-term rentals from the code,
No,
just from NR and CR?
correct.
Just want to clarify because we've also had suggestions to remove it from the code completely, to just not do short-term rentals. So I think the subject of short-term rentals and Airbnbs are somewhat separate. So just clarifying what we're saying.
This is specifically within NR and CR. Yeah. Now, Jim and Mike, if you could address short-term rentals requiring them to register as a business within the borough. How does the mechanics of that work? Does it have to be spelled out on what that means in the code, or can that be adopted?
It can be pretty general in the code. It can be just stating that they have to do a business, but I'll double check that with the solicitor, but it can just be a general. So this would be one of the permitted with asterisk, meaning that there's supplemental regulations because it's not zoning related, but you can do that with something like that. So we could do short-term rentals and CTOD and mixed use with, you know, extra supplemental regulations.
Makes sense. Any issues? None? All right. So before we get to noise, we're gonna jump back to the daycare topic. This has been something that's come up, I'd say, significantly. And this is specifically in NR and CR. Again, we're talking about NR and CR. And I thought the daycare was 1 to 6 children.
They have
It is.
two. They have 1 to 6 and
7 to 12.
Okay, so the 1 to 6, so this recommendation from requester Sandy Morris is to remove the 7 to 12, but to maintain the 1 to 6.
Correct.
So it is possible in the age of where childcare is so desperately needed, this doesn't eliminate it, this does eliminate it from getting beyond the ratios that would be, you know, requiring more of a business to manage out of the NR and the CR districts.
And I think Rhiannon, you provided some information that that's the level, that 6 cutoff is when additional information is required from the state. Is that right?
Yeah, there's like additional licensing requirements.
Okay, so I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I think it will also help with parking and other concerns and drop off and pick up and
Yeah.
all of those various sort of things.
Yeah, I think there's the 1 to 6 is less commercial,
Correct.
certainly than, you know, once you get into higher legal requirements and ratios. So we're a yes on this as well. Okay, and then the next is noise. The request is to add language to section 22530C that restricts the use of loud construction machinery in general business hours, such as impacts. This is great. Impact construction or demolition operations such as pile drivers, jackhammers, concrete saws, etc. shall be limited between the hours of 8 AM and 6 PM Monday through Saturday. Do we already have an ordinance about this?
Yep, and it's 7 to 7.
It's 7 to 7, so this how, if you were to put this in, that extra hour on either side, that would impact.
That could impact contract costs, because if we have to do, most contractors start at 6:37 in the morning. If they
Right.
are forced to move back to 8, it could increase contract costs in the borough.
And that's streets and
Yep.
the sewer
And,
separation.
and Public Works is set to start, they start at 7 AM as well.
Right,
So that is, the 7 AM start is gonna be tough to change.
so
The end time is a little easier, but the start time is gonna be difficult.
I was gonna say the end time would be less disruptive to allow it to.
Yeah. But then they go into overtime, you know, so most of these firms tend to work from 6 or 7 AM. So that can be a challenging one. And especially when you're doing most of the work in the summer and you want to get started, we often have contractors request that they come in at 6 or 5. In summer months, so.
I'm just wondering if that's like all jackhammering and concrete saws and those kinds of things, like, you know, the work contractors could do that is not noise making, not that they can't get here.
Good question. I've never seen it delineated, but we can look into it.
You know, I know that they take some time to get to their site, it takes some time to get set up, they have 4 cups of coffee, I'm just teasing, just making a little joke here. So that might be a provision, they can get to property, but they can't be noise making until.
Yeah, I can look into, we can ask the solicitor and see if there's other norms in the area or.
Yeah, is there like a decibel level? Like if you're gonna exceed a certain decibel level, you can't do that work until a certain time kind of thing?
And
I
that's the city has a
Okay.
65 decibel level.
don't, okay, but I feel like, I don't know, a decibel level.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be something like it's.
Okay.
so.
Do you know
So,
Pittsburgh's, what their times are?
This is out of Pittsburgh's. What's the quotes in your are out of Pittsburgh's code.
8 AM to 6 PM,
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, I mean, so if that's probably the standard operating procedure,
yeah,
I would say let's fall in line with them.
yeah. Let me look up. Do you mind if I bring back information in the next meeting? Just-
yeah,
Just to double check
we
that.
can double check this. And so, like, I guess where I'm going is it usual and proper for this to be in zoning? Or is this a borough ordinance?
Well, this is listed as 2020, this is
Right.
I don't know what this already says, if there's already in the, do we have a code? Can you grab? I don't even, it's not, typically this is a separate ordinance, so,
That's where I was going with it,
Yeah.
right?
so let me do the research and come back to the next meeting next week with more information.
Okay,
These
yes.
are 2025s.
I'll be right to it, just.
I have an electronic, I'm skimming through for noise,
Oh, it's on page 57.
we have 75 decibels, oh, this is park, yeah, and this is easy, yeah.
This doesn't have hours written. Because this is really all the time, right?
Okay, so it's number C4, on page 61 of the
Yeah.
draft.
7 AM to 9 PM.
Yeah, I think that's longer than what we have now. Look, you're right. Yeah.
I think some of the specifics that were listed here, the file drivers, jackhammers, concrete saws could be valuable, especially if that's lifted from somewhere else.
Okay. So we can get back at the next meeting, with more information on this.
Okay.
We can make a more informed decision.
So it does have a place in here now. What we're suggesting is to update what's in here now to potentially have parity with Pittsburgh. Right, and to verify that that falls within what we can do. And once we do that, I think it's also probably worth asking, does this belong in zoning?
Yep.
Or is this something that's omitted from zoning and handled through our ordinance?
Yeah, because if it is already ordinance, this is just gonna be one of those ridiculous situations where we have 3 things saying the same thing, and they might not say it's the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have that open and I can't search it offhand, so, okay, so we're gonna look into that as possibly. In theory, it's good, but in practice, it needs to be I's dotted and T's crossed, right? All right, did I skip? We had all the bullet points, right? 100%, all right. Outdoor lighting, this is another good one. Request is limit flag illumination exemptions exclusively to flags displayed on government property in an effort to minimize residential light pollution. Everyone wants to discuss limiting illumination to residential property or to government property.
I mean, isn't there a US flag code where the US flag should be illuminated, so I think we should follow that.
Right, I personally don't see how that could be enforced. If somebody chooses to have a flag out, they has to be, we're in. So the other side of this though is, in zoning, flag illumination versus an ordinance, lighting. Right, I can't set up my headlights in front of your house and sit there all night long blowing headlights in your house, right? So there's other places where that would be addressed, and it wouldn't be within the zoning. As I'm reading it.
I think that the point in that we should make every effort to minimize residential light pollution is
Absolutely.
totally great.
Yeah.
I don't know if perhaps the submitter is just looking at options to, reduce light pollution. So maybe that can be considered by council. I know there's been some conversations about being a dark sky community, so, yeah,
I mean,
so
that's
maybe
really
like that can just be dealt with at a different venue.
I think just a note, the flag, I've looked at the flag code, what the flag code actually says is the flag should be displayed from sunrise to sunset. Unless properly illuminated, so if we told them we couldn't eliminate it, we're still following flag code. So I don't think you are, because you're saying that. It, if you don't allow it to be eliminated, then you shouldn't have your flag up at night anyway. You should be taking it down daily, but. That's up.
So, but to me, for what we're talking about for tonight.
Yeah.
It seems like this should go to a different venue and not different format and not.
Yeah. Could be, yep.
And we do have, I would say, a pretty robust addressing of lighting and glare in an entire section in here, so it prevents the development or establishment of lighting around those things anyway, so, so you're gonna research a little bit on this one. Am I hearing that we're not really in favor of making this a zoning addition, but it should be perhaps recommended to be addressed in other formats?
Correct.
Fences. This one struck me because we have a whole section on this. Number 7 on our list is fences, request to add a limit to front, side, and rear yard fences. Thought that we had 6 foot.
Yeah, 6 feet is the one maybe they were, asking for specific, height limits for each front, side, and rear yard, but it does have a height limit in there. I think right now there is more variation. Like it's 6 feet and the side and rear and 4 foot in the front yard.
Any other thoughts?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Well, the question is, the request is to add, a height limit to the front, side and rear yard fences. I'm assuming that this is CRNR, is that?
This is in all, well, and it says that it already has limits, so maybe the
Yeah.
person who wrote it just didn't know.
Oh, okay,
So there's, for instance. 32B, the 2 says. District fences, districts, different, it lists all the different districts and it says. No greater than 6 feet in height shall be permitted in the required side or rear yard as measured from the natural grade of the ground.
Right. And then the front yard, what does it say for a height? It doesn't have a height?
It should.
no, there's nothing set.
So maybe we do need a height for front yard. I don't know why there's no height listed for front yard. It must have been missed.
What's the
I'm
current,
wondering if,
It's usually 4 feet.
4 feet?
I think it's 4 feet in the front yard.
Well, we're in agreement that the side and the rear yard seem to be addressed. The front yard fence is not addressing a height in the code as it stands underneath 226.3 subsection 3A, right?
Is size addressed?
Yes,
Yeah,
side is
fine.
addressed under that.
side or rear.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, I'm just trying to think of a house with a 10-foot fence in front of it. That seems odd,
No, they never have
Right.
10.
right?
4 foot is typically
Right.
in the front yard.
Right.
And 6 inside, 6, sometimes they have higher in the back, but usually it's 6.
Okay, so you'll confirm that and we can track a change to recommend a height restriction there.
4 foot front.
The 4 foot usual and
Yep.
proper limit. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Addressed. All right, let's skip 8 and 9, because I think they're a longer conversation and we're kind of on a roll here, so. This is a big one, right? Numerous Crafton residents brought the topic of minimum lot width. It's eligible for construction, right? So the request is to revise the minimum lot width eligible for construction requirement within NR and CR districts from 40 feet to 50 feet. So the minimum would be 50 feet, and there's been a lot of research. There's a map. I don't know if you have a look at you, the magic of television. That one. So this impacts the proposed. The buildable lots with under the proposed changes. So this isn't everything. This is just these areas. And so this is the 50-foot or this is the
This
40-foot?
This is what is buildable. These are the properties, the 21 properties that are buildable. If we change from 50 feet to 40 feet and from 5,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet.
So I have some verbiage from when the original was proposed. Would it be helpful if I read that? So it says the original intent was to reduce the minimum to 40 feet. The reason is that this zoning update was intended to preserve and maintain our neighborhoods. Many of our existing lots are 40 feet wide and some are even smaller. Zoning does not change lot lines. That's very different. So it only deals with what private owners can do on an existing lot within existing lot lines. It was the recommendation of the consultant and others that many resources on best practices that lower minimums is better. It's less restrictive and allows people to use vacant land productively. The 40-foot minimum was set because it's already so prevalent in Crafton. It's not an aggressive change, but it does update the code with respect to existing and historic conditions that we have. And then it goes on to state that if we do have 50 and they run into disrepair, it is challenging to then get things built on a 50. So 40 is really
On a
more
40.
on a 40.
Yep.
So
And so this is an analysis of all the lots we have in Crafton that are residential. There are about 1,500 residential lots for the most part. And about 500 of them are less than, so a third of them are less than 5,000 square feet, and that's them. Up on this map right now, the darkest green is 5,000 feet, 5,000 foot lots. But all the two lighter greens are both under 5,000 square feet, so you can see how many lots are non-conforming currently. So this is a attempt to bring a significant portion of these, about 270 of them, into conformity. And it'll only permit of the 21, it'll allow 21 vacant lots to be built upon. Most of those 21 lots had houses on them previously. Not all of them, but about half of them had houses on them previously.
We'll chat a little bit about the less than 25. I mean, so if you're less than 2,500 square feet and there's a few dozen at most.
I think there's about 25 lots that are under
2 dozen.
2,500 that have houses on them.
So the likelihood, and there are no, there's on the buildable property list, none of them.
Well, we didn't even look at those because
Because
we're
they
not
didn't.
trying to change it to 2,500 feet. We're
Right.
only changing it down to 4,000.
Right.
And so those are the lots that are buildable if you change it. And granted, some of these are side lots for people. They're not gonna be built upon. These are
Right.
just the ones that become buildable. One of them's a parking lot, one of them's a side lot, and there's random other ones, but these are the parcels, the 21 parcels that become buildable with that 40-foot. And both of the reductions, I didn't compare them separately. I looked at both of them. So I looked at the 40-foot and the 4,000 square feet, so I'd have to parse them out to figure out which is which.
Yeah, I think if we reduced it from 40, or I guess like increased it to 50. It would kind of do away with a lot of the intent of the zoning ordinance, which is to make people or help people be able to develop on their own property and like make improvements, because right now, like, yeah, a lot of people who live in Crafton cannot legally do things with their property.
There's a lot of non-conforming
Yeah.
properties.
And so this
Got
addresses
confused.
just the blue that you see, that the properties that this change
Well,
addresses.
that it addresses those in the sense that it allows them to be buildable. If you go to the green, the other one, what it does for the middle green is it makes all those lots conform now. Because those lots are all less than 4,000 square or less than 50 feet wide.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you could talk in the feet,
Yes,
not the thousands, I
50
get, it's
Yes.
getting confusing to,
Yeah,
to follow.
yeah, so and unfortunately, I didn't do the analysis just on the one, it's both of them, but. Those are all non-conforming lots right now because they're less than 50 feet wide.
So right now, the dark green is conforming,
Correct.
and going forward with this 40-foot change, the medium green would now become conforming.
Correct.
And the light green and the light gray would still be non-conforming.
Correct. In fact, you could lower this lot size to 3,000 and have more conforming lots. But yeah,
I also think, this, keeping it as proposed, addresses some of the concerns around potentially decreasing property values, because if you kind of do things with your lot, then it's hard for your property value to go up if you're allowed to do things with the property that you own. And I'm not talking about like a vacant lot, but like if you can build an addition on your house, which most, like all these green parcels cannot do, you can increase your property value. So I think it gives a lot more, it's gonna provide more choice to current residents.
But building anything would still fall into the building code, would fill into setback, would fall into the, all of those
Still
other
all the
things.
other
Yeah,
rules.
you can't build up to, beyond the, so.
I'm sorry, I just need,
Mhm.
I need to pull out your before and after.
Right?
I thought it was 50,
Mhm,
went to 40.
mhm,
People are asking it to go back to 50.
mhm.
Where are we?
We are.
Conversation.
Yeah, but what- I mean, what is the
The proposed code says 40 feet.
40 feet?
Okay.
And this discussion that I was reading was the reason to keep it at 40 feet And is that what we're all saying? Keep it at 40 feet?
That's what it sounds like.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I think that makes the most sense.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was hearing it correctly.
Yep.
Because I was getting lost.
I think there's enough guide rails in everything else. That would require, if you wanted to do something on your property. There's enough guide rails in terms of what I was mentioning, the setback and the, you know,
Right.
the reality is you can't just go, you know, building to your property line, so, so, yeah, I think that, and again, we're gonna open this up for public comment. I'm not sure what more I'm missing, but I think we're all in agreement that keep it at 40.
Yes, and I would just say some of the other things that feel good to me about that are that if you have a smaller lot and we want to attract some business, that rather than have a vacant lot because it's too big to build on, we've got a smaller lot for a smaller shop. That might be in those areas that we're it, so.
Awesome. Okay, so then we have 8 and 9 left on this list, which is the up to 2 bullets. Topic is the use table. Further consideration of what should be used within permitted and conditional permit. I think I understand this, but do you have more context that you'd like to share on it?
Yeah, so this is basically the trying to strike a balance between how much goes up to council and how much discretion the staff have to administratively approve uses. And when you look at the use table, I'm afraid I don't have it up, but it's a big table with all the letters in it, toward the beginning of the zoning code. A lot of P's with stars and a lot of P's. And so that's the question. Do we have the right uses with the right P's with stars and the right uses with the right C's that should go up against?
And the philosophy behind when we were going through and adjusting these was uses that you want to encourage, you want as little regulation as possible. Uses that you want to slow down and be very cautious about, you tend to put more barriers in place so that you can have more people taking a look at what's happening. And so that use table is set up with that in mind, and yeah, we should have the use table, we can. Yeah, oh yeah, it's on the front page of the website, we can pull it up, so.
There's some P's with stars, you can see the C's, there's a couple of P's with stars, bed and breakfast. More veterinarian. And really, P's with stars are the most permissive. That means they're permitted by right.
Right.
P's with a star means that you have extra things you have to do. For example, with veterinarian, there's some additional requirements like spacing and whatnot. That's why there's an asterisk there. And so generally in the business areas, we try to keep as many just straight P because we're trying to encourage business. And things that are a little more involved, like a farmer's market or a flea market that might be temporary or whatnot, those had asterisks. So that's the reason it's set up the way it is philosophically.
So is the question about, do we really, I mean, do we then have two different decision makers? And I'm just curious if everything shouldn't be centered, if it shouldn't be like one.
You don't, that's not common. It's typical that you'll have permitted uses that are permitted by right that staff
Right.
handle.
That's,
And then there's gonna be conditional uses which go through council. So they have to be, conditional use has to go through the council process. And then special exceptions have to go to the zoning hearing board. So that's that's gonna slow down the process the most because you have to have a legal review and whatnot. So typically conditional use, you wanna limit to things that you really wanna slow down. And the permitted with asterisk is allowing the staff to deal with the conditions as opposed to forcing that entity to go to council, like for solar panels, for example, you wouldn't want, a lot of municipalities make that conditional use, which slows down the ability to install solar panels, so it makes it more expensive. So we don't want those conditions there, but we do have conditions that the staff has to manage. So that's why we've done it, the way that we've done it, but you can look through all of the, I guess the question to the commenter would be, were there specific ones that they thought, I think would probably be a better question would be, was there a specific uses that they thought shouldn't be supplemental? And
Yeah, and just the order of operations here, P is what you just said, it's permitted. Period. The P asterisk means it is permitted, but the borough office has certain criteria that you have to meet in addition to you being allowed to do it, right? You can't just do it. Conditional use means it has to go up
Right,
and
it's a
be
higher
further
level.
reviewed. And then the special exception means it has to go out to a special, to the whole process of zoning and review again. And the blanks in it are just not permitted. It's not allowed.
Right.
So my take on Greg's comment was, do we have the Ps and Cs in the right places? I hope so. And we've spent a couple of years on getting these Ps and Cs moved around on the checkerboard here, pretty well. And I mean, I'm pretty darn confident because we've gone through each of these so many times with the consultant, with the staff, with the community groups, with everything. I think we've done it, and I think you said it best in the last meeting when you walked through the process, that there could be something that is missed, and there is a process built into this whole process, that would say if a P got misp'd, it will be addressed when the misp'd is addressed. So yes, I mean, there's been a lot of due diligence, a lot of work, a lot of people have been moving these Ps and Cs around the board and putting asterisks and non-asterisks in it. I feel confident in where we are. I think that those of you that have been in and around this for the past couple of years know that there's been a lot of labor that's gone into this use table.
I would be interested in knowing if there were specific uses
Yeah.
that Greg was concerned about, and I know we're not making any decision, voting on anything today, so yeah, I would like to hear that, because there might be some things we can fix before.
And I certainly expect that there will be even beyond, Greg, what you found. So yes, so that is an invitation to the public, invitation to everybody to bring any comments about changes within the use table, that should be contemplated. Those, what'd you say in the email? Greg, the what if scenarios that maybe we didn't think about. So let's flush some of those out and see if they're, you know, I think what I think might happen is a few more asterisks in the Ps, right? I think the Ps and the Cs are generally where they need to be, but maybe some of them need a little more beef around the asterisks that give, we don't want to slow people down, but giving you the opportunity to kind of codify what needs to happen in order for it to happen. Okay,
Just curious, do we know what council feels about it?
on the individual use charts, I'm sure they're all, but they haven't made this, I mean, this process with planning commission, then it goes to them.
Right.
So, yeah, some of them have been involved, but others have not. So obviously Vince has been involved.
Yes, it is. What do
Yeah.
others think?
yes. Yes. Some of us see the use table in our dreams. Okay, so that's it. Yes, thank you for the request. We'll look into it. The next topic is the more topic is specificity, and the request is to make an effort to add more specificity to sections of the code. There are no sections named in this, and I thought we were hoping to get some sections back.
Probably my fault. I can keep up with my notes when meeting with Cody and a bunch of folks the other day. So
Okay,
maybe during public comment of Cody's in the house, and I feel he can elaborate on more.
and if he's not, maybe for next week, we can get what those are. You know, I read the one comment that this was written by really smart people that love administrative speak. And by definition, that's what it is. So, yeah, the more Waffle House speak we can add to it, the better. I mean, at this, I just don't know if there's certain areas that, people feel strongly about that could be clarified, so. I've read 10,000 times, so it's all clear to me. Clear as mud. Okay, any comments, any discussion around that? All right, and if
I would just want to offer for, like, my thought process was
Yeah.
that if I understand that it hasn't gone to them, but as a constituent and recipient of this, if they had particular preferences about things that they wanted to weigh in on versus have not weigh in on, that would also be, for me, a criteria that might influence a P plus to a C. That's the only thing that I was
Yeah.
suggesting.
Oh, back on the use table.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I think in general, maybe we should ask them about all the comments.
Well,
I think that's a great idea.
That turned out, you're. It's like a little, speaker sound, and it turned out.
I can listen to the speakers.
That's it.
So, I feel like I just heard a motion, and this is what I heard. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but what I'm saying is, maybe we should make a recommendation to council to add their commentary, right, on the use table and in general, right? Their thoughts on opinions on it prior to us for next week, because we're gonna try and get this to a final landable plane, right, in the next week. So rather than that cycle happening after the fact, maybe asking council to give any input, because I know a lot of them, a lot of you are deeply involved in this, and your DNA, your
I would
thumbprints are already all over it.
Majority aren't that deeply involved in this quite yet. I know I am in person is, I'm not sure if the other ones really have like dived into the nitty gritty.
My recommendation was only for use tables. It was
For the
my
use
unanimous.
tables.
It was only for use tables, which is the decision-making point.
It's the biggest part of it, yeah, for sure.
I mean, Jim, I think we'd have to make sure that they understand like what's being asked of them.
Yeah, and I don't know that we'd be able to get this within, we're certainly not gonna get this back in a week.
No.
No.
Because, yeah, so, I mean, we could ask about the use table, but even then, I think it'll be the people that have been involved.
Yeah.
That'll make, right,
Well, it's the basis of a discussion,
okay,
and we have people who
Yep.
can provide input to that discussion.
okay. We will ask.
Yeah, those that haven't, so for those that haven't engaged, basically what we're saying is, can you take a look, give some early feedback? If there's anything glowing in terms, especially those PP asterisks, right? Because
Right.
it seems like the area that's, I think, most debatable. I mean, we've over debated some of these. I think that it's a great idea, if you want to make that as a motion, so to add commentary to just the use table. Or familiarize and for any preliminary.
I could make
That's-
a motion to do a preliminary check with council on their just comfort with the current use table, P asterisk process C, original use process. And any revisions they might make, that we provide input on.
Okay, and keep in mind, they don't meet until after you guys meet next.
We understand that.
Okay.
Because you just said that a minute ago.
Want to make sure that's
Exactly.
clear.
Okay,
He's the one who said next week. Maybe.
okay, maybe I'm in a hurry, maybe I'm in a hurry, sorry. No, I feel good. Does anybody want to second that?
Like,
Okay. Okay. So we addressed everything that's in here.
do we need to vote on it or no?
Oh, yeah. you need to-
Oh, we probably should. All in favor?
I,
Aye, yeah, sorry. Okay, let's assume that part.
No opposed.
Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, the revisions to the zone, district maps, there's a couple here, we're not gonna get them matched all for a few minutes, so let's just go right down the list. Let's go right to the top, with the first one. Before we move this, from the bullet points we just, completed. Was there any voice, any concern any additional thoughts of what we just completed that you may have had left out? Or are we good to move on?
I'm good.
Going to proceed? Okay. Requested revisions to the zone district map. Request to change the following marked parcels, which you see on the screen right now. On Grandview, between Grandview and Linwood and Promenade, or Linwade. Not a real street. To mark these parcels from CR to NR.
Yeah. I agree, that's a primarily single family neighborhood. There are multifamily units down at the end, but it looks like they're in the. What's the orange?
Orange is industrial. No,
No.
Orange is conservancy.
Conservancy, okay,
But they're not. If you look at, there are several units, this is a concern of mine. Because this could end up, this is down zoning. And this has been zoned that way for 20 years, more than 20 years. So it's been zoned as R2 for essentially 20 years. And owners, there are several multi-units on that. So we could be at risk for a taking if we downzone this. Taking means that if someone has planned to invest in their property and we find out, and we downzone it, and then they find out that they cannot do the work that they had planned to do, then they will sue us for the difference value in their property. So when you downzone properties, this is a concern because it's been, and it has so many multi-units already on it. That's when you get into a risk.
but is there a pathway, if they really wanted to turn to the multifamily, is there a pathway for them to go to zoning board? There's a remedy to.
Not if, you have to prove a hardship, and you can't prove a hardship if it's just that you're in the wrong zone.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I would like to understand why, because it is a change, like as you mentioned, it's been zoned this way for 20 years, so. How is it preserving the current fabric of Crafton if you're changing it? Cause it's R2, which is basically. Yeah, it's already. Like there's a few changes in.
Yeah.
Lot size, but that's not it. So I mean, are you saying there's like a legal risk to the borough if we?
Yeah, when you get into areas that have been zoned at one intensity level. It's less problematic if there's none of those uses there, but there are several of these uses there. So on Division Street, the request on Division Street is much easier. Because all of the properties on Division Street that want to be zoned are already residential. So there's no businesses there, and unless we could get sued on that too, because if for example, if 3 of the houses were bought by an LLC and we didn't know, and they had plans to create a business, then that would be considered a taking in that situation, but it's less risky there because we haven't seen any development and we haven't seen any properties that are.
It's reasonable for us to do that.
No
then.
applications,
Right.
So, quick question about the top side of Grandview.
Yeah.
So that's going into conservancy.
Yep.
What's it?
It was already in conservancy.
That whole section?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, my only like hesitation is. The legal risk and like. Weighing that with. What some residents have requested, so I guess like. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
So I also had questions about, what the down zoning is a concern, so that I
Yeah.
think is just something that we have to deal with. And so. My questions probably don't make sense in that I wrote down.
Oh, okay.
In lieu of the down zoning. Because they were really about, when would this become a problem? If we did it and we grandfathered in everybody who was there, and so they stayed, or.
Well, that you get into the same thing that Rhiannon was talking about earlier. So if you do own one of those multi-parcel buildings. And you need major repairs or you want to do an addition, you can't do that because it adds to the non-conforming nature of your property. And so you could force properties that are multi-use into disrepair. Because now that property owner cannot seriously reinvest in the property. They can reinvest and they can repair things, but they can't do bigger repairs. So that's the risk.
So like if a resident, if someone lives there, say is renting from someone who owns that house. And the owner wanted to do something to improve the conditions of that rental property, they could not.
Well, if the conditions are like an addition or things like that, yes, then they
Anything
can't
that
do
would
anything to
require-
make the property more
Right.
correct.
It's tricky.
It's very tricky. So
If you wanted to add a garage for parking, to solve off-street parking, you wouldn't be able to do that.
If it's attached, I think if it's a separate accessory use, you could.
Okay,
If it's attached to your house and it becomes, we'll have to look at the nuance on that, but
Subject
because
to
a separate.
setbacks and building codes
Right,
and all those
Right,
things.
so there are limits, yeah.
Yeah.
So if it becomes like if it's an attached garage with a room above it, yeah, you can't do that.
So this.
But if it was a separate garage, that would be an accessory use, so you could do that.
So this recommendation comes from the original subject matter expert, the consultant, right, was to keep this into what is CR, is the recommendation for this carrying forward. The request is to move it to down zone to NR, which opens up, you know, these, so for the people that are there, who wanted to do something with their property, NR becomes a blocker for them to be able to do that, and that's why the CR, you know, was recommended by the experts, to keep it as CR in the new model code. Right,
Would you be able to show us which parcels would be potentially, I mean, we're gonna do it right now, right?
Well, they're on this map,
Oh,
and they're also on the, we do have. Point on there, you see our lot uses, yeah. So if you look at this, zoom in this, so these are all the lot, so anything that's not the lightest blue is a multifamily. So you can see how many in that area are especially in that last bit on promenade are multifamily. So the lightest blue is single family, everything else is multifamily. So every blue darker than,
so there's a few 4-family,
Yep.
3-family. Yeah. It's hard. Yeah, I
but
would,
there's also no vacant lots, so, well, there's only one vacant lot and it's owned by a neighbor, so, I'm sorry, there's 3 vacant lots, there's 3 buildable parcels. In that area, there you go, there's the buildable. So 2 of them are already built, so 2 of the parcels that are vacant are those square lots that are actually on South Grandview. But they're already buildable on the current code. That's why they didn't change, that's why they're not on this. Yeah.
yeah, I find it difficult to accept the request just because it opens us up to a liability, otherwise, so.
it doesn't preserve the current fabric, right? Like it would be changing the current fabric.
It would be a change of the 20-year established fabric that's there, yes.
I think it would also be keeping in what is currently there. It's primarily single family with a few exceptional multifamily. That's what I'm in favor of downgrading it, but the decision that we made.
Can I bring this to? Take that on where we are?
Yeah, absolutely, I mean, you're in favor of not going forward with the downgrade? That down zone,
I think I need to learn more about what risk this puts us at.
Yeah.
Not just legally, but in terms of like fair housing practices and those sort of things. I just need to know more.
Yeah, I would agree. I was curious where we were leaning and what's the information we want to find out, what are the next steps on this.
okay, Brian?
Yeah, I'm in the same, like, I'm concerned about the legal risk, but otherwise. If it turns out that it's not a huge issue, then I would be. Okay. I wouldn't object to changing it, but.
So how do we find out more?
You can ask, the solicitor.
And this would be the only downgrading at the moment that we're being.
No, there's
From current, I meant.
four,
Okay.
most, several.
The next one?
Yeah.
The very next one, okay, so we're gonna check with the solicitor about what
What the risk is.
jeopardy there is, in terms of the risk. Yeah, I don't know if there's a capability of reaching out to the multifamily owners. About what their aspiration is either, but.
Well, then you guarantee that we're at rate for a taking. Yeah.
Right. Right, so that's what I mean, so it's just, I think it's very. It's very difficult to not to accept it, but yes, we can explore it more. Not a fan of legal jeopardy. So the next one is division, from CTOD to NR. Larry Mayo, this is the oh, you already brought it up. You're a step ahead of me. Beautiful. Okay, everyone know where we are?
Yeah.
This seems pretty straightforward.
What's it currently zoned?
Now, this one is currently zoned again, but this one is different because it doesn't have a single business use. Except for I would recommend not rezoning the last parcel. Yep, so you should keep that one as CTOD, but the rest of the parcels are all residential, so there's not nearly as much risk, so.
Right.
This one's an easier.
Is the last parcel, the apartment buildings on the bottom? Bottom one?
No, I'm looking at the funeral home.
Oh, you know, okay.
How about the one next to the?
Oh, the Craftonian?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should probably be rezoned too. I mean, it should probably stay CTOD.
Gotcha,
But the rest of the
Is there
street stays.
a few multifamilies there though, like? Isn't it
Yeah,
the same risk that we just?
Oh, that's a good question. The yellow one has all the
I think this-
residential.
I see a red, I think I see a green.
There's a red one, and red is a 3-family.
What is?
Yeah, there are multiple, multifamily on that. You can switch it to CR. I mean, it does have a lot of it has almost as many multifamilies as single family.
Once again, I'm pro switching
Yeah, it has,
The yellow.
NR
Yeah.
viable.
it has a 3-family, a 2-family, and an apartment complex, and then it also has a red, which is a 3-family.
Okay.
So they might look like houses, because
Right.
they might just be,
Just about-
yeah.
On my drive-by, they look like houses.
Yeah.
My, yeah. When I look at the maps here, I guess like this one, the request is to change it from CTOD to NR, so right now it's zoned commercial to C2. So the request is to go from C2 and then like all the way down to neighborhood residential. It's a really big change, like even a bigger change than the previous request. So again, when I'm thinking about the intent of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the district, like. It would be this little block of neighborhood residential, next to, I don't know, I'm just not sure really.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I just wanna know like, get more information and the reasoning for the request. It seems like there's a little, maybe less of a legal risk, but.
Well, across the street on Division, that's already CR, right?
No,
No,
that's all I know.
it's,
So so it's all the way down to NR,
Yeah.
right? So the in-between here, rather than going all the way down to NR would be CR.
right.
And carving out Craftonian and the funeral home on a corner, keeping them part of the
Correct.
transit. What about the opposite corner, the bookend corner on the left-hand side on Station?
That's a
That's
2-family. Yeah, that's a residential. And then there's an apartment complex. So those are all residential.
Right.
There's 2 single-family homes tucked in that are actually connected, and then there's a apartment complex right there.
I'm just thinking about the kind of the geography of it a little.
Yeah, we should actually have it marked starting here.
Yeah.
CR and then going around. If you're gonna change it to CR, that's what it should be. So I can't, so I'll show you. on that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can someone, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
do some
So
pointers.
this parcel, starting at this parcel and going to this parcel. I'd recommend CR.
Right,
Yeah, it seems to me CR is the best representation of what it is now.
right.
So it is CR now, that's the best representation of what we have, and it is appropriate to do the funeral home in the communities. Civic center, or whatever, that's the old language, Capitonian, to make them stand correctly identified as CTOD.
I agree with the caveat too. It seems like there may be some legal risk there too, so as long as that
Yeah.
is not actually an issue. I would be good with that.
So we're now looking at legal risk. We're going to, talk more about the redefinition of the color to CR for what you pointed out.
Yep.
Okay, next, the next is a request to change the following marked parcels on Belvedere from CR to NR. And so these currently are
R2.
R2.
I thought they were, when I wrote that memo, I thought they were R1 and they were R2 and they have been zoned R2 for over 20 years.
This one.
And there are several, again, going back to the, go to the green, to the blue document, yep. You go to the blue document, there are several already on that, and I'm actually less concerned about this one because I've done more research on this one. The only parcel that's developable on that plot of land is that parking lot. And that parking lot would have to go through a very long and lengthy process to be
The parking lot's not a parcel,
It is, it's with the house.
it's with the house.
Right, so it would have to, that's exactly what
Right.
I'm saying. So to develop anything on that street, you would have to subdivide that parcel, which is a very public process. And can be stopped for any reason whatsoever, just because the public doesn't want it. And so. This is another one that is at pretty high risk legally if we downzone it, because it does have so many. It does have so many apartment buildings already on it. Multi-units already on it. So there's the risk there.
So right now,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
How up to date is this map with the different units? So I see a few different throughout the
Yeah.
flora that are saying they're multi-units when they're in fact single families.
I pulled this today, so I don't know what.
From the-
I don't know what.
County website?
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
So that they might have some mistakes, but generally speaking, it's right.
okay,
And on this street, I know, and then the other two, so the only developable parcel is the one we mentioned, the parking lot. The other one that's of concern are two lots that are that are right next to the church, and those are supposed steep slopes, so they're undevelopable too. So there's nothing on that street that could be developed, and it has been marked as R2 for 20+ years, and probably longer than that.
Nothing's happened, right?
I have two questions. One is, the steep slope behind,
Mhm.
is that zoned as conservancy?
No, but it's, because the lots themselves are flat on either side, it's the backyards that are really steep, so that's why it's not zone conservancy.
Because I think one of the, I'm just raising what one of this, community members who lives there raised to me, which was if it were zone conservancy, and I understand why it isn't.
Yeah.
It would prevent people from trying to build parking back there underground, which would destabilize the hill and those sorts of things. So that was, I think, part of the concern
Well, they can't
about that, so.
they can't build on things additional 25% slopes anyway. So if they tried to build a parking garage or parking, they wouldn't be able to do it on a steep slope. They're not allowed to build beyond a 25% slope.
Okay.
25 degree.
Yeah, there's other checks and balances that already exist to prevent anyone from.
Yeah.
Prevent me from putting a garage in the hillside behind my house, yes, that is.
So if you never asked that question, that's the answer.
Yeah, that's the answer,
Okay.
yep. Okay, so where we are is currently moving from R2, the request getting it not to CR, which is what was recommended, but to NR. creates a whole bunch of potential problems.
Good, yep.
A whole bunch of potential problems. So, you know, the concern around you can't build into the hillside may do well to alleviate some of the reason why this request came out. I would be in favor to keep this one, what the consultant recommended as CR. Does anyone have any thoughts about that?
I would just like to recognize what I understood as some of the concerns, and I think the concerns are mainly around the lot. And building on the lot and the congestion that that would provide. And they raised a really good point, which you living there is probably know better than anybody, is that parking is already the
I know
challenge.
the lawn, yes,
Right, you
on
know,
that lawn, yes.
exactly.
And my
The-
neighbor.
Right, you and your neighbor
Yes.
mow the lawn on that lot.
Yes.
There's parking concerns. Also, people fly down that road, which I find that hard to believe, being driven on that road, but. So if there are things we can do to alleviate speeding, if there are things we can do to do anything. To alleviate that, and then the other thing is there's, you know, with all the delivery trucks now. That are going up and down, it's a really congested street, and then the problem also is pulling out, I believe. Or is that on Division, that's the problem with pulling out onto them. There's also.
No, it's a multi-point intersection by the church
difficult
hill, but
intersection, right,
I don't see that as, I mean. There's nothing to build there
Right.
unless somebody wanted to do something with the church. And the church as a CR has limitations of what could be developed into the church. Right, CR already has those curbs built into it. So,
okay,
you know, I mean, no one can build a Target in that church if it's a CR, right? So the traffic impact of what it can be, you know, is what it is, and. You know, it's a couple of $1 million property, that's 30,000 square feet. You know? So,
Quick question, with the parking lot property. I know you said it'd be hard to break it apart. Could someone just buy it, tear down the house and build a multifamily there, or would that have to go through council or anything?
That's a good question. Yeah, they could, Brett, they could do that.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, yeah,
and with the risks of downgrading. That's what
Yeah,
we're saying.
yeah,
with
it does have the risk of
downgrading.
taking, especially if someone had bought that property and wanted to do that with it. Or if someone is thinking about doing it, but yeah, that does put us at risk.
I mean, we want to keep, sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
I was just
Yeah.
trying to compare risks
Yeah,
of
Yeah,
the two
yeah.
downgrades.
The goal is to keep the fabric of that street. It is primarily single family, so that's why I am in favor of keeping it that way. We'll prevent any risk. Otherwise,
yeah, I have a conflict of interest and I'm all in favor of an AR, so I'll let you guys kind of come to your own conclusion on that, but, you know. You know where I stand living across the street from it, so.
I mean, my concern is just the legal risk. Yeah, so getting more clarity on that, generally, I'm not in favor of down zoning, but I wouldn't object to it if there's not a legal risk.
I also think that, I'm sorry, just as I'm thinking about the risk, there are. It feels like there may be greater risk on the Grandview end than on this end. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
risk, legal risk, or,
Of downgrading.
I mean, when. It just takes one person who's upset by the change to cause legal risk, correct?
No, someone has to build, that's what we're talking about.
yeah, someone has to
Want to.
have plans or want to, yeah.
Yeah, but it just takes one person, so
yeah.
like, doesn't matter.
What, I'm sorry, you said Grandview, and that threw me
I'm
off.
sorry,
What do you-
I'm thinking about the last one we talked about, Grandview,
Right,
was the promenade or Grandview.
Oh,
I was
oh.
comparing the risk of the
Okay.
two downgrades.
The risk
we've
of that
discussed so
versus the
far.
risk.
I don't know, they both have a significant number of properties on them. I don't,
Okay,
yeah, I think they're both risky from that perspective. How risky is, it depends on some, you know, and this is the other thing, these meetings are recorded. If they go back and watch them, they'll know that we downzone them, you know, so there's evidence,
Yeah.
things like that. But I mean, we have to do it, so. But, yeah,
Yeah, stuff. So what I'm hearing is, with evaluation of the legal jeopardy. NR is still kind of on the table. But given legal jeopardy, maintaining it from R2 to recommended CR would be the direction we would go. So this will be back to the solicitor to give us an assessment of risk. Yeah, right? Sorry. Okay, any other thoughts on? The awesome street of Belvedere, okay, request to change below section of CR bounded by Broadhead, Emily, Warren and Rebecca to NR.
That's already R1, so I am in favor of maintaining that. Because there's no legal risk and it's already R1, so changing it from proposed CR to NR would be kind of maintaining the status quo with some slight changes in dimensional requirements as proposed.
So I mean, yeah, there are a lot of multifamilies in that area. But if it's R1 already, I'm for moving to NR. Yeah.
So assessment of risk of downsizing, is the request here. And our leaning, I agree, our leaning is to go to NR. Anyone dissent on that? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good thing on the line for these days, let's, okay, oh, this one. Request to change the one-way section of Noble, you have the map, yes, of course you do. From CR to NR, requesters, multiple people, none of them. Did we read their last name? So. This is, everyone knows where we are?
Right here.
This is currently.
this is currently R2, so if you go to, this is another one that's at risk of downzone. This is what exists there now. And that has been zoned and or zoned R2 for, well, for at least since 2004.
What map are we, that's the dense.
Yes.
So it's not-
So yeah, this one actually seems to have a lot more multifamily and like bigger,
Yeah.
20
Mhm.
plus units.
And there are no buildable lots on.
There is no buildable lot.
I would encourage we get the assessment of risk back, but I think that we're gonna hear this one being resoundingly, we should not.
Risky.
Move it. I understand the request, everybody, that makes it loud and clear. I just don't know that the legal jeopardy can really justify it. Unfortunately.
I think it's really, just say that the maps we have now with buildable lots, I think are really valuable, just to contextualize with this, because these,
It's a difference.
it does make a big difference, I think.
Yeah. Because it reduces the risk and the concern, the anxiety.
Now you can
Yes,
understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You can see what we're actually talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like really enlightening to see that, like, we've heard a lot, the rental percentage, like the percentage of people who are renters is high, but the actual housing stock is mostly like single family.
Right.
So, yeah, like overwhelmingly so.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, for this next one, this is Maxwell, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Yep.
To talk a little bit about a recommendation before we
Wanna go back
have our
on that?
conversation. Wait, let me pause for 1 second. Any other concern about the Noble? Piece? Okay, we're all good. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you wanna bring up the blue map again? Yeah, so this, we come in the same one here with the down zoning request. And I know there's concerns about specific lots, where people could develop. So my recommendation here would be to actually change. Well, go ahead, did you have a question?
Where are we? Just.
So on the Maxwell, that looking at these
Oh, okay.
these parcels here, this was also requested to be downzoned. And this one is probably the riskiest one to downzone because it has so many multifamily. Now, there are 6 lots, that people are concerned about developing. These 3 lots right here are currently developable, with single family did you have a?
Can you circle again wherever you're trying?
Yeah,
Okay,
right here.
sorry. Okay.
So we're right here. So these 3 lots are fairly large. These are basically 10,000 square foot lots. So they already permit pretty much any use that you could have in that district, single family, 2-family, multifamily. These, however, with the changes do become buildable with multifamily houses. So my recommendation would be to if we change the lot width to 60 feet for multifamily, just for multifamily homes, then we prevent multifamily from being built on these lots down at the end of the street, and we essentially keep it at the same buildability with a few exceptions that it is now. So we eliminate that issue of someone building on all 6 of those lots, multifamily homes, and we limit it to single family and duplexes on those interior small lots. And that way it basically keeps it the same as it is now, and that change would be across all CRs. So we'd also eliminate the possibility of doing narrower multifamily lots in other districts as well. But it would prevent that concern from that happening down at the end of that.
So for me to understand this, this would alleviate, what we believe is the rationale of the request from Crafton residents for NR is what you're getting to in a different direction by expanding the minimum requirement of 60-foot berth for the multifamily. Right, but that would have a consequence, and the 60 feet would now impact every
CR.
CR in the borough.
But I think that's probably a pretty fair regulation for multifamily homes, so that they have larger lot sizes anyway, so.
Where I was heading with it though is, there was concern about us going down to 40, but we're actually going up to 60
But only for,
in CR
only for specific
for
houses.
multifamily.
Right.
And what I'm supposing is the reason for a lot of the feedback, and this is what we welcome the feedback. Is people being moved to say, well, the 50 and the 40, it's the 60 alleviates that,
Mhm.
right? Because the concern area and the rationale for the CR or for the NR requests is to prevent the multifamily.
At
Right,
least some, yeah,
yeah, well, so
yes.
it's making that much more difficult to increase density, right? Okay, so with this, is there an assessment? So this is currently CR. We would actually be not moving to NR and recommending not moving to NR in our final draft. But we would be moving the overall multifamily requirement to 60 feet.
Correct.
Any discussion, thoughts, concerns?
I'm all for the change. Is there a legal risk from the current property owners if we're taking away their rights or their ability to build multifamily there?
No, because they're not able to build on those lots already, so we're not actually changing what they can currently build. We're not lowering, we're not lessening what they can currently build.
Makes sense. Thank you.
It's just future proofing, nothing. Okay. Can we move? Okay, awesome. Thomas Street. Would you have a comment on this one?
No.
Okay. So request to discuss further the most appropriate zoning district designation for Thomas Street near the shopping center. The current zoning map and new map illustrate the proposed changes. Both are below. So currently it is
R2.
It is currently R2.
Half of the street, you can see in that olive green is R2.
I see. We have all of green, you have all.
Oh, sorry, yeah, whatever
Yes, yes.
green that is.
Yeah, printers. Okay, so. Everyone knows where we are?
Yes.
Thoughts?
What's the ask?
He asks for further discussion on the topic because you have the R2 section, which is primarily residential along that side of Thomas Street.
Yes.
You have the Steuben Street overlay currently, which is the red hatched lines to cover the business that's on Foster.
It's a Dollar General.
The Family Dollar, yeah.
Family Dollar.
So that covers the Family Dollar. And then everything else is C2 on one side, and what the new code proposes, as you can see from the map on the right, is everything just moves to mixed use, so it would be an upzoning of the R2 section of this area.
And the C2 basically becomes mixed use as well.
Would someone buy one of those properties and turn it from a house into a business theoretically?
And there are businesses on that street, on the other side of
Yeah.
the street.
I think so the concern is that. Is that right?
And if I'm understanding the request right, I mean, the person lives on Thomas Street, they pointed it out. It was during the open house, so I didn't catch them, but they just wanted, more discussion, more analysis, so I felt compelled to point it out. It is a complicated little area. In the current code, you have 4 different zone districts and a zoning overlay in the current code. So that really complicates
Start to get a simplification.
discussions. So it does simplify things, moving to just all one color in the new code.
What's the intention?
The intention of moving it all to one color to simplify it. It's very complicated web of color down here.
What are the implications?
It would be an upzoning for the R2 area. And a partial downzoning, and there's nuance there, but a partial downzoning for the C2 area.
And unfortunately, those decisions were made before any of us, we were here. This happened in 19 or 20. Or 21 and 22.
Right, this was the first draft, this was in, yeah.
So this one is from the first draft.
That's
That's
current from the early 2000s.
Yeah,
This
This
is
one's from the first
from
draft.
2020-ish.
The first draft.
2022, when we first got the consultant, which was prior to my arrival. Rhiannon, you were gonna ask something?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like the biggest impact is probably to those parcels that are currently zoned as R2.
Yeah.
There are gonna be lots of uses that currently are not permitted, that will be permitted by right.
Yeah, they essentially to rebuild residential, I think it requires that you have it above a retail shop, essentially. That's where the mixed use is set up.
And there aren't, I guess, any buildable lots.
No,
No,
Thank you, Rhiannon.
I'm interested in hearing more, I mean, like, more specific concerns, because it is a big change, it is an upzoning, and I would definitely, like, if there, are residents, business owners who have concerns about the potential impacts, I would want to know that before making a decision, given how big of a change it is.
you know who made that comment, you know?
I don't, was that you?
I might. I have to do some digging, but I
We'll see if we can't get all
Yeah.
this. with it.
Yes, this is the conundrum one, right? It makes all the sense in the world unless you live there.
I'm not sure what information we'll be able to provide on that. Yeah. So.
Well,
If
in
we don't
theory-
have the direct comments.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll hear from them.
Yeah, okay,
If maybe not in the next-
okay.
I was around in 22 or whatever the beginning of this was, like I said, to me, it makes sense, and I'll stick with that. I certainly understand the pause, I went through it, it makes sense going forward in that district.
Well, and I'll make a point, no matter if it's R2 or R1, all of those lots are non-conforming anyway.
Right.
So they're all tiny, they're all like 2,000 square foot lots, so they're gonna be non-conforming no matter what we do. So
And that means what?
that means that any major, to what Rhiannon was talking about earlier, basically, if a property burns down, you can rebuild it by the code. But if a property is, let's say, left to fall apart and is a vacant lot, and 3 years from now, and you wanna buy that vacant lot, you can't rebuild on it. So it essentially prevents you from rebuilding if something is, rebuilding what was there. Or if you wanna put an addition on a house, you can't put an addition. Because that is exacerbating the nonconformity of your lot. So those are the two, you basically can't do any major investments, but they can't do it now. So, and they've been in that position for quite some time, so maybe that's one of the decision points, but that's what that means. Hopefully that's clear.
Where's Duncan?
Duncan is down that way. Off the map. Oh, Dunkin' Donuts?
No.
Oh,
Duncan.
well, because Dunkin' Donuts is right
Right.
on Foster.
Yeah, no,
It's in this map too.
We'll just need to wait to hear more. The reason I asked about Duncan is people have raised concerns about about
The driving,
the driving,
right,
about the garbage, about the litter and,
that's the Maxwell,
Proximity.
those are the properties down at the end of
Okay.
Maxwell.
okay.
Yep.
Because I'm wondering if those are similar concerns based on its adjacency. I don't know.
We haven't heard those, concerns,
No.
but that doesn't mean they don't exist, I just haven't. heard
Well, the
them.
residential portion is kind of its own enclave, if you will, for it, so they're not gonna be subject to this, it's not a through street. I don't,
It's not 3 Street, and it doesn't connect there.
I just.
Yeah, but
I
that's
thought
just the
about
way
it.
the lots.
The,
because
it's a paper
yeah,
street,
right.
like Maxwell's not a real road there, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, that doesn't.
Yeah,
Um,
that is one of the challenges with the way GIS prints out lots. Yeah.
Right,
All right, so we know what we're doing.
well, that would be one question I have, so right now, Foster Maxwell Thomas is not it's not continuous,
That's correct.
you can't drive it.
No, it's that little area is basically its own area. It's on a street and Norma are the only way to get in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, has the borough done, what can the borough do? Can the borough decide at some point to say, well, we're gonna extend Maxwell Street to connect with Thomas?
No, not if it's been, we could do that if it is relatively preserved and the owners on either side of it are willing to give it back to us.
Right,
But if they've owned it for more than 20 years, it's difficult to reclaim paper streets that have been basically taken over. I mean, if they weren't taken over legally, it's a little easier, but if they've been taken over legally, and I think I think houses are right over top of
and
it.
I think that affords more protection, that fact affords more protection to those that are living on the Thomas and Norma Street, Duck Way there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, thoughts? So right now, we're. What is it, mixed use is the proposed status.
Right.
And I mean, other than doing something that is like what it is now would be the only alternative. I don't think that that makes as much sense as, you know, but I'm jaded, I've been through it already, right? So. I lean towards mixed use. How do you say?
I don't feel like I can accurately evaluate it, so I'm sort of abstaining from this one.
It's hard to say because the request is request to discuss further and it, like you said, it does make sense for it to be zoned the way that it's proposed.
We'll see if we get feedback.
Yeah.
For the next meeting.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully someone pays attention.
Yep, we'll put it there. So that gets us to the general request. General request from the zoning process, I did not reorder this in any way, I figured we'd just take each one of them. Through, the topic of community engagement, the request from community engagement to form a community engagement committee. To be gathering a gathering and clearinghouse for information on any initiative that the borough wants input on as support to decision making.
Council has this request and they're actively working on it, so
Yep.
I think
We can pass.
I think that's probably
Yeah.
the right thing.
The topic of community engagement, request could conduct another community survey with hard copy mailers and robust digital engagement. I'm assuming this is in relation to the zoning, right? And I believe that. Do you have the process map still on that thing?
We do not, no, it's.
Yeah, it's buried, okay. So can you walk us through, so we get this, we're moving through the finer points now. We're gonna arrive at a finished working draft here with your feedback shortly. And then we'll make recommendation on a final plan to council. And then council, there's a legal review in that as well, right? And then council goes to the county and there has to be a public comment period. So I think that my opinion here in terms of the digital engagement and hard copy would be during that public comment, because right now the hardest part for those that are listening, the hardest part of all of this stuff is we're in draft mode. Like this map isn't up, we're finally coming to kind of a finished workable product. And at that point, we've already recommended it up to the county and the legal people and the council to bless it, because now you have something that is, worth absorbing and picking at, because this is supposed to be what at that point would potentially be the final plan. So if we were to re-engage around that point, my fear about engaging with this is I have 347 versions of this document. And so we're gonna do 348 with changes that we're waiting on the attorney. You know what I mean? To do that engagement right now wouldn't make as much sense as it would be when we hit the public engagement, public review portion of the review process. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I mean, I do think it would be valuable to make sure that, not everyone is online, gets savvy citizen. Making sure we include information about the zoning, making sure that every resident knows that there's gonna be a zoning ordinance coming up and not just like publishing in the newspaper, like some kind of mailing, I think would be really valuable. If we're not able to do a survey, I would at least wanna see that, cause it is everyone who currently lives here, owns a business here, is gonna be affected, there's gonna be a change for everyone, even a minor one, so. I definitely wouldn't wanna hear from someone, oh, I had no idea that this was going on.
Right.
Yeah,
And the public comment period is 40?
60 days.
60 days, not 45, 60 days. It seems like that would, we know when the public comment period is gonna begin. Because we're sending it off, well, you'll
We
have
will
some
know
advance
we-
warning from the
Yeah,
county,
we'll know
we
when we
decide
get
when,
there.
yeah,
Right.
we decide when it
Right.
starts, so
right?
borough decides.
So now you have the birth of a 60-day window to do a mailing. We can do an event down at the park, if weather permitting, what time of year that is, I don't know, or here, what have you. We can do the things, that we've done, to engage people. There's only so much, there's only so much that we can do, but I think that would be, to me, that would be the best time to do kind of the full board kind of community engagement again. Okay. Moving on. Business engagement. Request is to conduct a survey with only business owners and ask what the borough can do to help them grow, what obstacles are holding them back, and what the borough should do to initiate new business development. Boy, I think that's a lovely idea, for our community, economic development, director to work with the planning commission on, but I don't think this is necessarily part of the zoning
It's a good idea though.
process. I think it's a great thing. And what we've been pushing back and pushing back and pushing back at each one of these meetings is talking about the community development, the CDC idea and the community development. I don't know that a CDC is the right thing for Crafton, but I think having a conversation about what it is and what those options are and properly introducing Mike, are all things that we need to get to as soon as we can get this to old business.
I'd make a note on that. I've been thinking, because we've heard a lot from residents talking about Carnegie's business district.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty active CDC, maybe inviting them to a planning commission meeting to
Yeah.
talk about what they've done
Absolutely.
and what successes they know. That would be something I'm going to be interested in.
Absolutely.
I also think that, using Mike as a resource and going out to like a Fontana's office or something like that. To help us understand what kind of technical assistance grants and things like that, because it wouldn't be run, the CDC wouldn't be run by. The government, they sit as their, but they do need insurance. They do need a workable business plan, they do need a board, they do need, so there's people that know the ropes there. And that takes time, talent and treasure, and there's probably some grants and some interested parties in some of the politician world. That can help us with it, so that's why I said some sort of thing there, I think it's long overdue. But it's something that doesn't necessarily have to fit with the finishing of this zoning.
And we're working on a business directory, that's come up,
Mhm.
so then we can really easily do the survey.
Yep.
Eric's laughing because we've talked about this so much, yeah.
It's great, I love it, I like that it's coming into focus,
Did Crystal Beam already start something? I think she may have.
a little bit.
Probably,
A
yeah.
little bit, yeah. So, formalizing that strategy, I don't wanna burden Crystal with,
Right.
hey, go develop our, okay.
Mhm.
I wanna invite
I
her
was just
and. to be a
complimenting her
very-
initially,
Yeah,
all
she's
I was
awesome.
doing, not
She's-
burdening.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, business recruitment, similar to this, numerous conference, the red request here for those that don't have it on their screen is focus on recruiting restaurants and retail. But business is different from the dollar stores and the vape shops, not that we're encouraging anything here in this meeting, but to attract mid and high restaurant and retail. And this has come up over and over and over and over again. And I think we've made baby steps, right? With a couple of businesses that we've mentioned here tonight and over the past couple of weeks that have done a great job. And to get more of that, and I think that fits back into that business engagement, right? What are the things to the businesses that are here that are flourishing that would help? If there was a coffee shop, would a bookstore help? Those are questions that can be added
Carnegie's
to.
opening a bookshop, like we are losing out,
Right,
for sure.
absolutely. Okay, so again. Great ideas, but I'm not sure it fits into the scope of the zoning. So the topic of residential rental units, we talked about this. There were specific requests is to minimize the likelihood of increasing rental units within Crafton.
I think the increase of the lot size that we just talked about does really get to the heart of that, right? Or at least as a tool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that everyone's spoken clearly about density.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is to create sustainable economic development. Without creating a burden and hardship by increasing density to a point where people don't enjoy living here. And I think that's been the balance of everything that we've been doing for the past 5 years on this. And we're finally coming to a head to it. So yeah, I agree. I think that we've checked that off and we're continuing to let that be a North Star in everything that we're doing. Go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, I hope that people, I feel like a lot of progress has been made recently and in these things. I just wanna appreciate all the comments that came in that contributed to that, that allowed us to take action and make some of the decisions that we've made tonight and Aaron with that very visibly as we're making decisions. So thanks for all your input.
Absolutely. The next couple here, the topic is residential. I'm skipping. No. Residential right request is to create a better way to track and enforce rental landlord registrations within the borough. This is a written note. We don't know who said it, but I certainly agree wholeheartedly. Given the fact that you're equipped with a shiny new zoning plan, the implementability of said plan, does it make it easier or more difficult for you to accommodate this request? Neither.
Yeah, but this is a totally separate request. This is guided by the rental inspection process, and we are talking about improving that ordinance right now. So we have to meet with the fire chief to discuss the ramifications of that.
So we have ordinances, we have building codes, there's a lot of things that are moving pieces. This specific mechanism doesn't fall underneath the zoning. But it's a darn good idea and something that's needs to be brushed off, dusted off and fixed and made better. And I don't see anybody here disagreeing with that statement. So yes, thank you. The topic of density requests do not increase Grafton's population density. Requesters are numerous Grafton residents, myself included. So hopefully what this plan is doing is setting the foundation, in my opinion, for good things to happen and for Grafton to thrive, right? Walkability, light, right? The economic development that follows the increased walkability and fighting blight. It comes back to the comprehensive plan that's now almost 10 years old. We've updated and we've kept as integral to guiding all of this work. Any comments or thoughts about this? I mean, this, I think, speaks directly to that. We're almost to comments. The topic is map of developable parcels. Well, can you bring that up one more time for us?
Look at that, I probably came in before we had this.
Yeah, well, it did, but it's a great idea, and I think it is. Numerous folks here have said it's been invaluable to better contextualizing, especially some of these weird kind of requests that are not weird, but hard to manage kind of requests that have legal jeopardy associated and other things associated with them. So with that,
Whenever you talk about
Yeah.
numbers, it just makes, I'm sorry, I think whenever you talk about the reality of it in a numeric, legitimate, here's what it is form, it really helps us. So, I think it gives me a feeling and we know what we're talking about.
There's just something else that was brought up a lot was parking, right? And especially as business owners in our central business district. And I just wanted to ask if we could learn more about the ability for Grafton to enforce our parking standards we already have, like the 4-hour minimums along East Grafton. And I'm not expecting an answer right now, but just I guess to make the request that we know a little bit more about how we can enforce our current craft around.
I'm
parking.
looking at the
Okay.
mayor because that's really falls under the mayor's purview.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, but sure, if you want to.
Okay, yes, we can. That is a police enforcement issue. And
Sure is.
as things are evolving with what's happening, what's gonna be happening next. With police force and police chief, those are all areas that we can be looking at, and as mayor, that falls under, my direction of working with council, because we will have to look at what ordinances we actually have and how we can enforce them. But, certainly I have through the entire process really come to realize how much of what everyone's concerned about is parking my cars and having more cars to park. So, definitely something, you know, I'll take on and begin to work at with council and with solicitor to see what we have on tap. But we can start on something. I know in the past, I've had council and a lot of council where we've been looking at things like permits and things like that, at that point in time, I'm not saying because we didn't do it before, we can't look at things like that now, but you know, certain communities have permit parking zones, you know, for residents only and things like that. So it's, you know, it's a pretty complicated thing, but again, maybe something else if the planning commission could be helping with as we investigate that.
And in addition to, you know, enforcement, something that I've been thinking a lot about is, you know, use of other parking lots that exist for overflow parking purposes, right? Getting in touch with those business owners or use of our park and ride parking lot for businesses, just to better connect business owners to those opportunities too.
Absolutely. Okay, anyone? Open forum from commissioners. Okay. With that, we're moving to your turn. So public comment, I'm gonna read this statement. Only Crafton residents, property owners, or business owners may comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please refrain from personal attacks or obscene language. Please be neighborly. Yes. So with that, absolutely nobody's on the sign up sheet. So if you could, I'm gonna put the sign up sheet on the podium. And when you come up, before you speak, write down your name and then speak your name and your address into it. That way we capture everything. Everyone's welcome to speak. You have 3 minutes to turn the timer on. You have 3 minutes to speak about what we've talked about or things that we haven't. With that in mind, I saw this hand first. So if you'd like to go first, you're welcome to it. For those online, please get in the queue. So put your hand up online and we'll watch and we'll bring you in as well.
Sorry, my writing is gonna be pretty bad.
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I just asked you to do that.
That's okay.
So sorry.
I can translate.
Sandy Moore, 1781 Bar Avenue.
Yeah.
If I understand it right, the symbol C, the conditional principal and accessory use, that would have to go through council, is that right?
Correct.
Could that be added into this specifically to say that, like, SE says it goes to the zoning hearing board, could C say it goes to council?
Yep.
So that we all understand
Yeah.
where it's going, help make that more clear. And the 60-foot frontage for the multifamily, is that just for the CR district?
Yes, because multifamily isn't permitted in NR. It's not, it's not permitted in NR.
Okay, but that doesn't,
It's only 60 feet for multifamily, not 60 feet across the board. It would still be 40
Right.
feet. Yeah,
but so in the mixed use though, that's not,
no,
no, so it's only CR,
it's only CR.
okay.
That's multifamily street things.
Is a multifamily duplex the fellow like to know?
No, duplex is its own. Duplex is a
Yeah.
two-family. That's its own thing.
Yeah, because multifamily is,
Anything above two.
Anything
Anything
more than
above
two.
two.
okay. And just as, not that I live on Thomas or Norma, but I'm curious, if my house would conform to the CR code now, that's in the zoning, if it would-
You're in where?
Norma or,
No,
Thomas.
it would not. Nothing conforms over there. Well, nothing on the left side of Thomas, none of those
I know.
lots conform.
right,
On the right side, there are lots that conform, so I'd have to see your
Okay.
specific lot.
but say I did own one of those lots.
Yes,
My house burns down,
yes.
now I'm in the mixed use district, I can't build my house.
Well, I'm gonna correct something that we've been using as an example, which is burning down. There is a provision for burning down that you can replace your house. The reason we use that is the most common thing that happens is actually someone abandons a house
Okay,
and then it is, dilapidated, a tree falls on it, we have to take it down. That house can't be rebuilt. If you have a house that it burns down, and you want to rebuild it, there are provisions that if you rebuild it immediately within 18 months, you can rebuild. But it's more about the other properties that, happen long-term. So yes, you could rebuild if your house burns down, but if it's let's say your house burns down and you take 3 years to do it, now you can't rebuild.
Now you're under the.
New code.
Just want to make sure I understood.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Chris Savage, we're 41 Avenue. I just want to bring up, I thought we were taking Airbnbs out. I personally don't want to live next door to an Airbnb. I've heard nothing but from neighbors, the two live by them complain. Parking, parties, loud noise, all night, like the woman on Freight. There was a couple Airbnbs on Facebook, for example, today, there was a complaint about an Airbnb. I don't think this could be community to that.
I thought we did.
I would-
we
You
did.
said you were,
Yeah. No, I think we,
NRCR, I have enough to take them out.
yeah, I thought it was taken out of NRCR.
As far as the ADUs, you should about carriage houses, the old carriage houses.
Yes, that's what-
1800s.
Yep.
I thought so.
They still count.
Yes.
Well, my house was 2 units too.
My name's Candy Mayo and I live on 53 Division Street. And I have a comment and a couple questions. So my comment is that McDermott Funeral Home, although it's on Division, the address is Noble, which is commercial. So I wanted to address that. And also, I'm not sure I'm clear on what exactly CTOD, what does that mean?
That is transit oriented development. It is a term that has been used in the last 10, 15 years in development circles around transit stops to encourage higher density and commercial use around transit stops. Because people are walking in that area, so you want to encourage economic development in that area. And that's what a TOD is, a term that is in
It's
development.
close to the busway.
The houses on the opposite side of my house are residential, except with, as you get further down, apartments. I'm not sure I'm clear on why they can't make that back into an NR.
We didn't, I think we
I
decided
think
to
we
make it
decided to make it a CR.
a CR.
Well, we decided to tonight.
No,
No.
that is just,
It's what you have
matches
now.
What you have.
It's
Because
what you have now.
Because you have mixed residential, you have apartment buildings and you have single family homes on the same street. And so that it matches. You are currently zoned commercial. Right now, your house is currently, if you're on that side of the street, you're currently, okay, yeah, that side of the street is currently zoned commercial. I think what we talked about was zoning it, the higher density of the two residential districts.
And you couldn't build, you couldn't bring businesses in onto that street.
No.
And could you bring big apartment buildings or anything like that?
You can bring apartment buildings, but only if they're meet those lot sizes, and you'd have to subdivide lots to bring in a big building.
So my next question, my last question is, my biggest concern is Nativity Church. I'm on the corner of Noble and Division, so next to me is the apartment building that Nativity owns, and then beside that is the church. So if they would end up selling that, what could go there on that side of the street?
If they, depends on if they, well, so that's a good question, that
in the
It's
church
NR.
category.
what's that, yeah.
Right now, it's NR, so
It's NR,
Yeah,
so
they
there's
would
not much,
stop.
they could, yeah, they basically they'd have to tear, they haven't. Currently, they'd have to tear it down if they wanted to build anything else there. If they keep it a church, the only thing they could use it as a church,
But what is anything else? I know you said not a park.
a house or.
It would have to be a house.
Yep.
So I'm not gonna be looking at a CVS next door or something.
They wouldn't be able to, not an NR.
No,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Sorry, I put more than my thing in.
and then, well,
Hi, Nicole Kervin, 184 South Grandview. I'm strongly opposed to using a public comment period after the rezoning draft has been finalized to conduct a survey or send mailers. Best practice is that this step should be taken before a draft is finalized. Document versioning is not an adequate reason to leave out critical stakeholder input. I'm also uncomfortable with suggestions that we should have a draft this month when we have no idea how some of the changes being considered will impact residents. This is especially true for rezoning Thomas. Again, making something all the same color is not an adequate reason to change a residential area to commercial. This is problematic for several reasons. Limited influence. Once a draft is finalized, it's more difficult for public input to significantly shape the outcome. Major changes are less likely to be incorporated at that stage. Reduced transparency, it can give the impression that decisions have already been made without input, potentially eroding public trust in the process. Inefficiency, if substantial public concerns emerge after a finalization, it requires redrafting and extending the process, which wastes time and resources. Missed opportunities, valuable local knowledge and perspectives that could improve the plan may not be captured in time to inform the draft. Legal vulnerabilities, failing to adequately incorporate public input early in the process could leave the zoning decision more vulnerable for a higher amount of legal challenges. Reduced public engagement, people might feel less motivated to participate. They believe their input won't make a meaningful difference at a late stage. Potential for conflict, if the public feels their concerns weren't considered from the outset, it could lead to more contentious relationships with the community. And missed educational opportunities. Earlier engagement can help educate the public about zoning issues and build support for changes. A more effective approach involves multiple rounds of public input, including opportunity for comment both before and after drafting to ensure a more collaborative and responsive planning process. I think we're getting mixed messages when we hear a desire to collaborate alongside a need to finalize in a few weeks. I'd like to reiterate, as someone mentioned, that we should know who is requesting the rezoning of Thomas, which seems like it could drastically alter that residential section for those residents. I'd be in favor of door-to-door canvassing regarding those changes to understand residents' thoughts.
I'm just curious, Nicole, thank you for your comments. I didn't hear a month, so I just wanted to make sure that I still think we're in process for a longer process. So I would just like to clarify that.
Right?
Cody Sheets, Promenade Street. Mike told me a few weeks ago with a couple other residents that there's no hurry or deadline to get this thing built. So if there is no deadline or limit on this, then allow council to create this committee so that the committee can produce real, reliable data, quality data for you to consider. Slow this thing way down, and let the public engagement committee handle educating the public before we move forward with recommendations for final drafts. The commission talked about, I believe it was Megan, at the last meeting said that she wanted to earn trust back, that the commission wanted to earn trust back with the public. And this is a really, really good opportunity to do that and to quell the concerns that citizens have. Because no matter how long you've been working on this, no matter how long this has been going on, this committee can be a solution to the issues that we're facing right in this room right now, and to ones in the future as well. And I think it's just absolutely pivotal. It really is as easy as just creating this committee and allowing them to produce surveys for you, allowing them to produce data for you that's factual and not, misinformation, totally factual. I don't see how you could possibly not want this right now with the temperature of what's going on in this community. So I implore you to do so. I implore you to, let council create it and then don't do anything as far as recommendations until that committee has made recommendations to you. Thanks.
Anybody online?
Was there any hands up online?
Chris, one more.
There's two more?
If I have a question.
Thank you. Crystal Bean, 57 Belvedere Street. I have a question about, November 30th of 2023. Savvy Citizen had put out a notice, in regards to, have you heard, Crafton Borough is undergoing a zoning ordinance overhaul in collaboration with Ingram Borough. Then there was a survey that took place after that. And it stated that when this process is complete, the information will be shared with the planning commission, and then you would ask the public for input. I have looked at some of the polls and the surveys that were taken as a result of that meeting. Since then, it seems that Ingram has fallen off of this collaboration. And I'd like to kind of understand what happened, because I spoke with Ingram personally, and they said that they've already received their grant money and their zoning and code is already changed. So if you can tell me. Okay, I spoke with a lady, a secretary over there, and she said that it's already done and they're not sure why they're not working with Crafton. So I guess my question is, why the fallout and what happened to Ingram in this entire process?
They were not very involved from the very beginning. They had a few people come to meetings. And then we tried to have joint meetings and couldn't get them scheduled, and then we just stopped having meetings. This was, they have not passed the zoning code and they're not planning to pass the zoning code, and they only spent a small portion of the money through the grant. Because we managed it and they didn't spend their full allotment of areas.
And what is the name of the grant?
It's a MAP grant. It's a municipal assistance program through DCED.
And one other thing, I would like to see a risk assessment on Belvedere Street. Oftentimes when I try to leave the street, I sit there behind 1-2 cars. It's very difficult for me to make a left-hand turn to go down to the shopping center. So therefore I make a right-hand turn, go up to the circle, down Noble and down Steuben Street. And along with that, garbage trucks. My car has been hit by garbage trucks. I think I've had a snowplow slice the bottom of my previous vehicle. It's very difficult for these garbage trucks to turn around. And particularly with the subbase of the street there, which is currently brick, it's been failed for many, many years, so it's very difficult for these trucks to get up and down the street. So,
Thanks.
thank you.
Robert Perry, 10 Baldwin Road. I just wanted to add a little additional information about the Crafton Improvement Connect grant. It was applied for jointly, but there was never any intention for it to be a joint zoning. We were supposed to work on it, work on our individual communities together to share the grant money, but never to have created a joint zoning. We had that, I think, quite some time ago, long before I was involved with one of the other communities, and that went by the wayside. That's part of the 2004.
Thanks.
Greg Wozniak, 1773 Bar Avenue. I heard last night about need to act solicitor for legal advice on a lot of these issues, and I was just wondering, there was talk a couple weeks ago about the planning commission having their own solicitor, and I was just wondering if you will be asking our current solicitor or if you will be asking your own solicitor.
I can
Thank
I
you.
can address that. We asked that at our last meeting. This is a working session. We're hoping that staff reports back at our next meeting. as an agenda item of what we can do, with regard to a solicitor.
So you'll be asking our current solicitor.
For now, we only have our current solicitor. This meeting has happened between the request, which was last meeting, and this
Yes,
meeting.
this
But we might be able to get someone in place and be able to ask.
It could
And we could.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Yep, yep, we might be able to get someone in place before the next, maybe not the next meeting, but at least soon.
The other thing that I would like to bring up now, and I know you asked for, I'm sorry, any other comments?
Yeah, was there any other comments before we turn back? Okay, cheers.
The only other thing, and I talked to, I reached out to gather some background information and found out that we have the opportunity to get support from the Pennsylvania State Department of Community and Economic Development by way of a professional planning person for the Southwest, the South or Southwest Pennsylvania.
Southwest Pennsylvania,
South-
but I'm gonna she's very new. We're gonna probably reach out to the next district over and see if that person can come.
Whatever.
They
it
have
might-
a lot
yeah.
more experience.
So I guess the thing is that we will have a non-Crafton person
Yeah.
who is a professional helping guide us as a committee through things that might be complicated or confusing. There's certainly for me coming in, and there are other questions, but just to look at our plan, give it their assessment. Where are we on target? Where are we? Anything we should be considering, answer questions and so forth. So I was gonna wait until Tuesday of next week to bring that up, but I'm just putting it on the table for our request as a consideration as a group.
I would say James 99 Street. To make sure whoever that is, does see the Thrive plan as well. I'm sure they will. That might give us some kind of framework for the changes that we're kind of proposing tonight. My limited research says that if you're establishing something, that it might be more possible than if it hasn't been something already previously kind of like built on. So just look at it over as well.
Good
Thank you,
feedback.
James.
Thank you.
I was just wondering what company that consultant is on.
State, Pennsylvania State.
Okay. Yep. Is there any like department that?
Department of
DCD.
DCED, Community and Economic Development. It's their main work is to assist. Same
Yep.
folks who give us grants can also
Yep,
provide us
yep.
support and resources.
Yep, thank you.
Ventures?
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for coming and also, for your comments. I, heard from a couple of people very strongly wanting more opportunities for public engagement and, I do think that since there's no rush, I mean, there's no external deadline, I do, hope that council considers that request. I definitely, support that request to form an engagement, committee, so I just wanted to put that out there.
I do too. I just also want to say that I'd like us to walk and chew gum at the same time. I'd
Right.
like to do some more to the comments that we got about business development and some of the work we need to do with our businesses. I'd like to, be doing this work at our planning commission meeting, but I would also like to get into the, business development.
Yeah.
For that.
Because
Like you said,
we can miss an opportunity.
Yes, yes, we're missing
too.
opportunities to be consumed entirely, and not that it's not warranted, it is, but I just want to be doing additional stuff too.
So we talked a little bit about forming subcommittees within the planning commission, and those committees can have members from the community on it. So at the next meeting, we can talk about, it may be that something else would be established at council. But there's nothing, I would invite Cody to come back to the next planning commission meeting. And maybe we can talk a little bit about structuring what we can do in terms of, maybe limited survey, limited engagement, whatever it may be. To help kind of move this process forward in terms of some of the feedback that we're looking at, example given with Thomas Street, right? We don't know what we don't know there. So I think that we'll certainly add that. I think that kind of lumping the things that you're talking about into kind of addressing maybe on a recurring basis, community and economic development. Is well, long overdue and something we can absolutely bring into the agenda as a recurring. Ongoing topic with some actionable things that we can be holding ourselves accountable to.
Would it be okay for me to reach out to the Carnegie CDC just to see if they'd be interested in coming to a planning commission meeting?
I'd ask that you coordinate with Mike on it, just so we can get the details in and get it on the agenda. That's all. That's a great idea. Please, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Kristen, Julie, I'll put my address on the one here.
Can I stop you just for 1 second? And I just want to go on record as saying, I appreciate what you're doing and what you just did. I want to call attention to that. She did not put her address on publicly.
Oh.
And I really believe that we should not be doing that in this world of media. And we need to investigate, how do we ensure that like, we know you guys, so we know you're citizens, but there's a process that we need to go through. But I really just thank you and I appreciate that. So,
That's a great point. Yeah.
It's just a different world now, and absolutely these people should and have to be posted publicly, but publicly means the entire world.
Right.
So, and we have no idea who's accessing, and now they have people's full names and addresses.
Absolutely.
So that's the other reason it's really difficult. I was one of the people that brought up the, reinitiating the survey during the open house, and also the, talking to the current practice, not only, but the current tracking business owners. The reason why I suggest that was, first of all, we're still in the public comment period. So I know that this zoning ordinance has been in the plans and been worked on for many, many years now, but there's no, like, this is still the public comment period, so it's not like, we're too late or.
Nope.
And don't have the exact numbers in front of me today. I had it for the open house. But out of 6,000 some residents, a very small minority actually participated in the first survey. And now we have more people involved, in part because we're using social media to engage people. But we're still not necessarily are we 50%, are we 6%, are we, I don't know. I suspect we're, in this room, we're still a vocal minority. And this is a very important thing, like you guys have recognized, it affects the entire borough, everybody, all residents and business owners. So my goal would be, or my desire would be to try to re-engage the public again with the survey, to get more people, just to make sure that by the time this is all said and done, whether it's a year from now, 6 months from now, 50 years from now, we can all say, as a borough, we did absolutely everything in our power to engage people. Like, we flew the Goodyear blimp over with a sign that said, "Hey, Crafton, come and speak with us, give us your opinion." And regarding the current business owners, so I hear in the community and in these meetings, Carnegie being used as an example a lot of a kind of like a benchmark community that we want to try to aspire to, because they have Main Street, and which is great, but geographically, the central business district and Main Street are vastly different.
Right.
So one of the things that I think, I'm not a business owner and I haven't polled them, this is not my wheelhouse, but I suspect that one of the things that makes Carnegie so successful is they have parking. And that is something that I've talked to a number of business owners in the new proposed CTOD. So even though we have the busway, one of their issues with business owners is, I don't have enough parking. And so, before the zoning draft is completed, maybe it would be a good idea to talk to them as business owners to see, hey, what is it that you guys need specifically from us? Is there a way that we can address it in zoning to help you guys out? Because what I'm hearing from you as a commission is that one of the goals to update this zoning is to encourage more economic development, and specifically, I heard it several times, is business development. So I think it's really important to talk to the current business owners to see what is limiting their growth before we can try to attract other businesses. Thank you.
That's great.
Can I love to be back on that real quick?
Leslie, you can get back on.
Mr. Ryan, just I didn't mean to speak about you before as if you weren't here. I just didn't see you in the back of the room, so.
Thank you. I appreciate my name being thrown around, just don't call me anything else. I would like to speak on what she said about Carnegie. We had a developer approach Crafton many years ago from Town Center Associates in Beaver. My husband has a Beaver office. This particular developer is a commercial developer. I had a personal conversation with him last week. Basically, his concept as a commercial developer is from the inside out. So when I think of building a three-legged table and setting my family up for dinner, I would prefer a four-legged table. I want a very solid foundation. That is what this gentleman does. He looks at, and he works with the Historical Society in the community. He looks at the fabric of the community. He looks at the aesthetics. And he develops commercial properties, and he's even done some townhouses recently that really fit the community. And if anybody's ever been to Beaver, it's absolutely lovely. I think it was incorporated in 1832, much older than Crafton. But he has offered for myself and one of my directors to join him in one of his talks in Beaver. And he had asked me if I would entertain a council member join me in that. So I would like to throw that out there, that any council member interested in joining us, we would like to go and kind of see his methodology and his processes, because I think that what they've done in Beaver is fantastic, and I'd love to see something like that here. So again, he has approached Crafton. We're a very small community, which is probably why he didn't work with us. He tends to work with larger communities. But I'd like to entertain that idea that maybe we take a look at what he does, his processes and protocols, and why he's so successful.
Great idea.
Thank you.
What was the
Thank
name
you.
again?
Town Center
Town
Associates.
Center
They used to work with the
Associates.
county. They were the assigned economic development agency that the county funded.
His name is Mark Peluso, and that's he bought my first child, a nice little gift, and he's a personal friend of my husband, so I would highly recommend it.
That's great. Thank you. Okay,
And
yes.
I just wanted to address on what Kristen said. Parking is a major issue. I'm fortunate in my business. I do have a parking lot. However, I have a lot of handicap patrons that visit my particular location. And I think that's also a very important aspect that really needs to be addressed in this area. Whether their appointment is at 8:30 in the morning or 6:30 in the evening, my handicap clients are really struggling to park. And they need it. They really need to get into my building. I also have residents of the area, like, I feel bad that they're parking in front of my place for sometimes 2 days in a row. And my patrons can't even get in. They're struggling. I have to meet them down the street just to get them to come in. So I would like to ask for that to really be addressed, and let's really take a look at handicap parking as well.
It's a good idea.
It's very important.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that? I would like to say that, on Division Street, we have several apartment buildings on Noble. And they have their own parking lots. However, they all park on Division Street, and no idea why. And so there is never any parking between the funeral home, which, why they don't use their parking lot, I have no idea. They don't park there, they park on the street, and so then no one can park. And sometimes you can just ride around and around and around. Nothing. And I know that the apartment across the street from me, it's the Moretti building. And the one beside it, and then the one on the other side of Hirschberger's, they all have lots in back of their building, but for some reason, they all park. Yeah, so, yeah, and the one girl I did approach, she said that, there's raccoons and skunks in the back there, and no, but, so she won't park back there, but we have the wall truck, business.
Right.
And so then, the church, nobody has parking.
Right.
So just wanted to bring that up.
Going once. Going twice. Motion.
to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second.
Second.
Working session adjourned at 8:30.